Hello and welcome to the PocketGamer.biz podcast week in mobile games, where we discuss the big news of the week and provide some insights. I'm Craig Chapple, head of content at PocketGamer.biz, and with me today is our news editor, Aaron Astle. Aaron, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good to be back. 2 weeks in a row.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, we're back to a good start, I think. But yeah, things are going all right. Keeping busy. Been playing some Pokemon this week. Nothing new. Revisiting some classics. Ultra Moon. So that's from like 2017, which is a scarily long time ago. Really doesn't feel like it.
I can't remember Ultra Moon. Is it one of the good ones? I presume it is your plan. Eh?
That's the very last like 3DS game before it all moved to Switch.
Right.
So it was a little bit controversial at the time because it really should have just been DLC to another game. So there was just Sun and Moon, and then a year later they did Ultra Sun and Moon, which is better and has more post-game content, but most of the main story is the same.
Yeah.
So it really should have just been DLC to Sun and Moon, but they didn't do that until the Switch. So, but now, obviously, years away from having bought the game and I just own it, it's like, yeah, sure, it's a good game to go back to.
Fair enough. I've been playing some games, actually. I've been trying to play more games that I haven't played before, other than Apex Legends and StarCraft. And surprisingly, if you have a month off of StarCraft, you come back and you're absolutely awful. So it's actually, I'm trying to play it, but it's kind of awful to play now. Everyone's so much better. But I played Cocoon, a cool kind of puzzle sort of platformer game. And that was really good, actually. Everything I was explaining to you and Paige, it's like sometimes I don't really like consciously know what I'm doing, but the game feels so natural that you kind of just do stuff and it is exactly what you're supposed to do for the puzzle. Like my brain feels like it's breaking on the one hand, and on the other side it's just like, no, I got this, it's fine. I just don't know what's happening. But yeah, very, very good game. And I also played Carry On, published by Devolver. I can't remember who made it. And that's pretty good. It's like it's a Metroidvania, and I don't know, you play this horrible monster that goes around killing people. And you have to escape this lab that you were imprisoned in. It's kind of cool, but I know it's kind of pointless of Metroidvanias, but there's no map, and I just kept getting lost, like incredibly lost. If there's one improvement I could make to the game, I would add a map, but then it'll probably shorten it by a couple of hours.
Yeah, I find that's a bit of a problem with Metroidvanias as I've got increasingly less time to play video games. Like I don't want to spend it being lost in the game.
Yeah,
but also,
yeah, exactly. But like, I didn't need it to tell me where to go. I just needed to know how to get to an area that I've already been to, right? Or also, like, I think Hollow Knight had maps, and it was really good for that. And yes, I still get really lost, but at least there'd be some context.
Yeah.
This, I was just like, I'm like somewhere on the map. I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, but it was still a good game. Right. We're going to jump into the podcast. We're trying to keep these short, so we thought we'd open with 5 minutes talking about games. But a few shout outs as well, really quick. So we've got Pocket Gamer Connect San Francisco coming up March 17th and 18th. We'll also be at GDC. If people want to meet up, just chat or do an interview or tell me about something really cool you're working on, just drop me an email, craig.chapple@stillmedianetwork.com. A bit of a mouthful. And then we're doing the Dubai Game Expo Summit, powered by Pocket Gamer Connect, May 7th and 8th. I'll be there as well. Shout out, I'll also be at Gamescom Latam, April 30th to May 3rd. I think is when I'm there. So if people want to meet up, let me know. And then our own events, we've got PGC Barcelona, June 3rd to 4th, first time there. PGC Helsinki, October 7th and 8th. And we're looking at doing others. We'll also have our Jordan event back at the end of the year. So yeah, keep an eye out. Lots going on. So the first story I want to kick off with is Marvel Rivals layoffs and the speculation of Chinese companies and NetEase pulling back from the US and kind of overall Western investments. My opinion, and I'll go into why, is, I read an interesting piece from Nico Partners today as well, actually, where they kind of say similar things. I'll try and quote some of that. But I don't think, for NetEase specifically, I don't think it's politics, really, at all. I think it's just business. Marvel Rivals launched in December. It looks like it's been a successful game. Lots of users. I presume that translates well to revenue. They've got teams in China and a team in the US. They've laid off I think a dozen people at least in the US. So all the speculation rapidly starts about, what's going on. How can you be part of a successful game and get laid off? I think it's just kind of an unfortunate business reality. So some of that, I guess, the political stuff behind this, that would make sense that people think that you might think it's a political decision. So obviously Trump is kind of creating tariffs for everybody and kind of being kind of aggressive with allies and enemies, rival states alike. Then obviously there was the TikTok ban, which Trump isn't actually in favour of anymore, despite kicking it all off. And I should add, it is possible there was delay to that ban, thanks to him. And I guess there is a world where that ban doesn't actually kick in ever, but it might. It depends what powers he has to ultimately stop that. And specifically, that has affected ByteDance kind of divesting away. Like it's had to relinquish the publishing rights for Marvel Snap, for example. Secondary got a different publisher for that. And apparently, the powers for the TikTok ban, as I was reading on Nico Partners, can be extended to other companies that have, I think, 1 million users or 1 million active users. So that would actually cover a lot of these Chinese publishers. But nothing is as influential as TikTok, right? in my opinion. Other things, Tencent directors were removed from Epic. You could argue if that's political or general just rule breaking. There were some antitrust concerns there. You could argue whether that extends out. We'll see. Tencent was also designated a Chinese military asset or company by the US, so that's not good. So there is I think there are a lot of concerns, and I'm sure for companies, well, especially Tencent, but for like NetEase, that does play on their mind a bit. But going back to it, I just don't think the decision was political. So if you look back, kind of its expansion started out because it was, I think, one aspect of it was it was trying to break away from actually heavy tech regulations in China and kind of the licensing freezes that kept happening. So they wanted another kind of revenue source and they wanted to go global, so they're not just reliant on China. So they're under regulatory threats at home as well as abroad, right? But in different ways. But I think what's happened is some of its Western investments just basically haven't really worked out. And these Western studios are quite expensive to run. And Chinese companies like NetEase, I think, have the capacity to create hits both at home and in China. Black Wukong kind of proved AAA is here, really, for China, as does Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, Marvel Rivals now. So, and I know there was obviously a US team on that. But I think that maybe there's a bit of a realization that actually we can do a lot of this at home. We don't need to do these expensive investments. I asked Contact in China about what's going on, and some other context is NetEase laid off all of its investment teams and kept one person, and they think that, and apparently the CEO isn't international and thinks, and maybe they've poured too much money into overseas investment. That was a month ago, and I think in that context it's not just US, right? It's a strategic decision of the company to lessen investment abroad. Basically, lower costs. Don't forget, in Q3 their revenue was down for games. They've just released it today. I think it very slightly up. It wasn't that much, so I'm sure that's on their mind as well. Increase profits and revenue quite drastically. This is one way to do it. I think they're good. They've said, I think publicly, they've still got other investments. They own Quantic Dream. How much money they made from Quantic Dream, really? It takes a long time to release a big AAA game. They've got Star Wars. Maybe they'll divest from that. I don't know, but I doubt it at the moment. Some other stuff. I think at home, China has the capacity to make these games. They also do successful partnerships already with Western companies to release local and global games. And I think ultimately also the other fact about the AAA kind of quality that's coming out of China is Western studios are going to, I think, increasingly struggle to compete with that. Lower costs in China, bigger teams. You could argue about work productivity. It's a lot more complicated. Does crunch ever really help? I think it's proven not. It's really sad to see a successful team with layoffs, but again, strictly business. Last 2 points quickly is that I know it's different, but it is worth thinking about. This happened in Japan years ago. So big publishers like DeNA and Gree, they made big moves abroad, big investments, only to retreat back to Japan. That wasn't about politics. That was about a failure. And again, with NetEase, they think abroad and they want to focus on home. There's been some failures there, so they're scaling back a bit. Again, with Marvel Rivals, I think just purely someone was just cut that, make more money. And also, when people are saying it's politics, I fight back a bit and say well, when AppLovin makes layoffs, Award notice that they made 86 layoffs, I think, last month in California. That obviously you wouldn't say, and they're hugely profitable for their as business, profitable anyway for their games which they're selling there. It's like nobody would obviously say, well, that's a political decision. They're worried about the political climate. No, they've just done it business-like because they think they can make, well, they're just cutting costs and focusing on revenue per employee. When NetEase does it for a successful game, it's politics. So I don't know. I just don't buy it. I'm sure there is a small sense of concern about it and maybe a bit of de-risking, but I don't think in this context that was it. So that's my opinions on that. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I think I broadly agree. I think it would be a bit preemptive for them to have done it purely on political grounds. Like Trump's been in, is it a month today, I think, as of us recording there?
Yeah, it's about a month, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't think it's a political thing either, particularly. As you say, maybe kind of low down on the list, that was an element, but I don't think that was the driving factor. And as you were saying, like, obviously you have like the big AAA Chinese games that have done really well recently, but on the mobile side, we talked on the podcast before Christmas, I think, about like all of the 10 biggest mobile games that came out last year were all out of Asia anyway. You're getting kind of far down on the list before any Western developers have done anything that massively impactful in the past year, really. So it doesn't seem that crazy that they'd want to focus in like Asia anyway with like their teams. If that market was struggling and those games weren't doing as well as they were, then maybe it would be a bit weirder, but that kind of seems to be the place to be at the moment anyway.
I can see it more for Tencent that would be a bit more concerned. I can see that there are concerns, not oblivious to that, and obviously with these things, I guess they can't probably have to look a bit to the future rather than just get caught out and blindsided by random changes. But it's a bit difficult to predict, I think, the Trump administration and what they're going to do at any given moment, and then how long or how much action will actually be taken.
Yeah, but then you could say the same for China as well, really. Like they've often come out with potential new rules that don't end up happening, or sometimes they do. Obviously, there was the licensing freeze 3 or 4 years ago. Then just over a year ago, they were talking about banning like daily login bonuses and loot boxes and stuff, which then they kind of rolled back on. So I guess wherever you are, like politics is going to play a role in it, but it's just choosing whose politics.
The interesting thing, I don't know if it will happen at this granular level, because like when they impose tariffs on stuff, I don't know, it's just like very broad. Like if US seems to be one like reciprocal policies at the moment. If they're charged something, they're going to charge that back. And so I wonder if at some point in the future, this is pure speculation, but they'll like to operate for a foreign business to operate in China, you need to work with a local entity, right? And also publishing games require licenses. Would the US start imposing a similar system on China? So that would be one thing to watch, but who knows if that would ever happen. So that's NetEase, but Aaron, there's so many big stories this week. We've got so much to cover in a short amount of time. But Aaron, you've got one of the big stories.
Yeah. So some pretty big news. So Niantic is reportedly in talks to sell off its whole games business, including Pokémon Go. Supposedly this would be to Scopely for approximately $3.5 billion. So this was initially reported by Bloomberg, who were informed by several people familiar with the matter. And apparently the deal may be officially announced in the coming weeks. But as of right now, there's no guarantee that an agreement will be reached at all. But yeah, if it all goes as sort of the word on the street suggests, then Scopely could be coming to own Niantic's whole games catalogue. So you've got like Pokemon Go, Pikmin Bloom, Monster Hunter Now, Peridot. So yeah, that would be a pretty big deal, really. I do wonder, because obviously a lot of Niantic's biggest games are using like licenses from other companies' IPs. So I'm curious like how that would play out behind the scenes if Scopely ends up taking over them. Presumably then, like, Pokemon Company would have to deal with Scopely regarding what Pokemon get added to Go, and Capcom would obviously have to talk to them about Monster Hunter updates and stuff, which, I'm sure can be done, but I just wonder how these other companies kind of feel about it, whether they have to be informed if, like, their license might be changing to a different company. But yeah, quite interesting, and obviously a lot of money if it all goes through.
I feel like this deal is so Scopely mentioned last year that they were looking at a game that was making like $1 billion annually to try as a mega deal to invest in. I don't think anyone thought it was Pokemon Go, which is not at its highest, but it's still an extremely successful game. Oh, you could argue for some of the decline. The other games in Niantic's portfolio, Monster Hunter now does actually make a fair bit still. Obviously, it's nowhere near the same level. It's not the level of Monopoly Go either. Pikmin Bloom is actually like been on the rise.
Yeah.
But it's very small, literally in comparison to anything else in the portfolio. But I feel like this is obviously Scopely is owned by Savvy Games Group, a Saudi Arabian company, and this it seems like this deal is basically being pushed through from the Savvy end, Scopely running the mobile business, right? So it goes through them rather than necessarily a deal that Scopely would pick up itself. But Scopely is well versed in handling these partnerships. I'm curious how it works, how it's going to work with Niantic after, because that would be, I don't know what the costs are. That's an extra cost because obviously it uses all of Niantic's tech, which I presume Niantic keeps going forward, right, and focuses on.
Yeah, because I imagined they would just transition into being a tech company.
Yeah.
Really?
Which $3.5 billion. I saw Mishka GOF on LinkedIn, I think, saying it's important to, because we don't know that much information right at the moment. This is all unofficial. But like, if it was a $3.5 billion deal, how much of that is in earnouts? But whatever Niantic gets is going to be a really tremendous amount of money. But like, what do they do after? Really? Like, no, because there's no other. Pokemon Go's it.
Yeah.
That use its tech, I think. Like, who else? What else makes a crap load of money like that?
So I can only really see it being that if they took the deal, then it's like, okay, well we've got $3.5 billion. Like, we're happy with that. We're kind of done.
It's kind of an exit, perhaps.
Because as you say, like what? Yeah, they are Pokemon Go basically.
And I think if I don't know, I don't really know what's going to happen after. But if it is a slower, we're the AR tech company. It's like good luck. I think. Obviously got a lot of funding. Magic Leap had a lot of funding. Couldn't do anything. We'll see. But talent. It obviously is a talented team there. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I will be interested to see how much all the games change if they do come under Scopely though, and like what monetization changes there might be. Whether we'll see Go start to rise again if Scopely start making it more like Monopoly Go. But my slight concern is I'm very strongly averse to ads in games. I just can't deal with it. So if Monster Hunter now ends up getting ads, like I'm going to be quite sad.
Well, I mean, but they still have the licensing partners who will have an influential voice, right?
Yeah.
And Savvy will want to keep this as a prestige thing. They don't want to ruin the games.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, maybe they won't.
Probably worth mentioning that I know it's not the Pokemon company, but Savvy has like investment in Nintendo and that, and they are looking for prestige, and they're looking to bring these kind of games and that within to Saudi Arabia as well. So yeah, I don't think they'd want to make any changes that would be detrimental. Ads could work, but
if they were like optional, or if it's like, oh, you've run out of Pokeballs, watch an ad and you can get 5 more or something. That
but then that probably wouldn't fit in with like does the Pokemon does the Pokemon brand want like
random ads
kind of the sexist ads appearing suddenly in the game, right?
That's
you don't want that. So
I guess it will be quite complicated.
And it's ultimately a kid's IP, so you'd have to be very careful. But yeah, we're going to move swiftly on to some more news. So Aaron, you broke this one this week. Jam City has agreed in principle to sell Ludia, which is seems crazy to me. So the background of this is that Jam City bought Ludia 3.5 years ago. Jam City, I think throughout his whole lifetime, has been desperate to go public. Last time when I was working at Pocket Gamer from 2016 2019, that was always the story. When are you going to go? When are you going public? And then a few years ago, they were going to go public. I think as a SPAC, I can't remember. And they were going to merge with Ludia to do it. And then they couldn't go public, even with a SPAC. I think that might have been when SPACs kind of died out. I can't remember the exact timing. And then that didn't happen. But Jam City bought Ludia anyway. Now, Ludia's like interesting team. They've made Jurassic World two licensed titles. So that's the background. But only 3.5 years ago. Since then, they've made layoffs. So apparently in 2022, according to a source from a story did in 2023, they laid off another 45 people. The game's performances, as a quick look, they look like they're either doing kind of level with, let's say, last year, or worse, and definitely worse than they were, I think, when they were acquired. Curious what the future looks like really for Ludia, how much the deal is worth. Is it a loss for Jam City? By the way, I should have mentioned, they're selling to a consortium of Canadian institutional investors, which is pending approval from the Canadian Competition Bureau, which is currently reviewing the sale. And then there's a quick quote. Jam City's been approached. This is a statement they sent to us. Jam City has been approached by and is in discussions with a consortium of Canadian institutional investors to acquire the Montreal studio and its portfolio. Both parties have come to an agreement. Apparently, I'm going to not say the full quote now, but it was Ludia's. They said it's one of 10 Jam City studios and its only mid-core team. The sale is not expected to have a significant impact on its overall business, as the company's largest and most popular games are casual narrative and puzzle-style premium mobile titles. Interesting to say premium in the context. I know what they mean, but it makes it sound like there's a premium game. Yeah, if the sale is approved, Jam City is committed to providing a seamless transition that supports the continued success of Ludia. I wish Ludia the best. Hopefully it works out. I don't really know what the plan would be moving forward for them at all, especially if they're being bought by investors. I don't know. I'm intrigued what they're actually working on with a smaller team. That would, I guess, make it worth the purchase for these investors. Yeah, so that was huge news. Aaron, you've got more. So you've got Epic Games.
Yeah, so the Epic Games Store on mobile is apparently going to be a focal point for Epic in 2025. So they're planning to work on building an enhanced app library and discover experience. So this comment was made in Epic's review on the store's performance last year, so through 2024. So apparently it saw 94 million new cross-platform accounts made, which brings the total to 898 million now. We asked for clarification on specific numbers for mobile. Epic didn't provide any, but we can kind of extrapolate a bit from the numbers that are there. So, we know that PC users totaled 295 million in 2024, which was a 25 million increase. And we also know that there were 94 million new accounts in total. So 69 million had to come from platforms other than PC. And Epic also said that the increase in accounts included those created through partner platforms and the Epic Games Store on mobile. So yeah, presumably, a fair chunk of that 69 million came from mobile. And it's also interesting to note that apparently a lot of the most popular games on the Epic Games Store last year were cross-platform. So they named Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, Wuthering Waves. So obviously that doesn't strictly mean they were people making mobile accounts to play them, but they are available on mobile as well as PC. And yeah, it's kind of interesting to have some numbers for the year, even if we don't exactly know the mobile numbers for right now. But yeah, that's sort of where the land lies for now.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. I think actually, but I don't know for sure, but because 94 million new accounts is quite a lot. But I think that includes people just playing Fortnite on console as well, which would be a substantial amount. Because Mac, I don't know how much that would count for. Mobile, the last time we knew, I can't remember if this is back in October, November, Tim Sweeney said that when they launched the Epic Games Store in the EU, they got 10 million accounts at the time. So it's not unreasonable to think that they've added quite a lot since then. So could be fairly substantial. This isn't a commentary on how successful the mobile store has been. But yeah, I'm sure a fair chunk, but also the console stuff really, it makes it so you don't really know what's going on. And I think the fact that they didn't answer probably says a lot.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, I guess if it was a really solid number, they'd want to brag about it.
Exactly. And it's not mobile really, but what really shocked me is, so the Epic Games Store has been going for quite a while now, and they invested so much money in it, bringing all these games to the store, the free games that they've got, the lower the revenue share, which will obviously have an impact on how much money they make, compared to say Steam. But they're really all this money that's going into the Epic Games Store. They're really just still the Fortnite company, and I don't know if mobile's really going to change this. To be honest, because it's so difficult to compete with Steam. How do you compete with the App Store and Google Play, especially when they make it really difficult to be a good store on their platforms with scarce screens and all the core technology fee and all this other kind of nonsense. Yeah, the Epic Game Store player spending by PC users on third-party applications using Epic payments fell by 18% year over year to 255 million. Overall, users spent nearly 1.1 billion, a rise of 15% year on year. So they're actually, the store really isn't making money. It's just Fortnite.
Yeah.
That's quite scary, I think. Yeah. Not good, I would say, in terms of their ambitions. Right, so we've got one more story to go through, the ones we've chosen. I want to talk a little bit about Big Fish Games to halt new game development and reduce investment in its portfolio. Aristocrat Leisure effectively put Big Fish, except for its social casino games, and Playarium up for sale, I think, last year. And they sold Playarium to MTG for 620 million. It feels like they couldn't find a buyer for Big Fish because they're keeping it now. But it said no specific mention of layoffs, but it said that the developer will focus solely on the continued efficient and profitable operation of its live titles. It added that it would also significantly reduce investment in Big Fish's portfolio. So it's kind of like they don't want Big Fish. That's how it feels. That's how it feels to me. They couldn't find a buyer, and now I don't know. It's just speculate. It feels like they're just going to wind it down a bit, or obviously what they're saying is they're scaling it back quite a lot. It's a shame because Big Fish was like a huge developer. They were bought themselves for $990 million by Aristocrat in 2018, and ultimately this is what Aristocrat has done with it. And then now they're refocusing their efforts on social casino. The other things they've done, they're basically rebranding a little bit and moving things around. So they've got their Pixel United reported segment, which covered all of their games. They're replacing that basically with Product Madness, which is a social casino developer that they have. But yeah, like a really big downfall for Big Fish Games that for a long time was a big company, big games company, and now not so much anymore. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with them, I guess. I wasn't in the games journalism scene back in the old days of 2018.
Back in the day.
Yeah. But yeah, as you say, it sounds like, a bit of a shame, I guess, that they've not managed to, kind of sell them on, or, if they were kind of a big fish before, then hopefully they will find something else worthwhile with them to do.
Yeah. Obviously, it's speculation on my part that I don't know. Maybe I'm assuming that they couldn't find a buyer, but I don't know. And I don't know, what they were after for any potential sale. And also, maybe Big Fish isn't that attractive without social casino games. So there's probably a lot of factors there. But never like to see that to a big company. The other big story that I really want to absolutely most briefly touch upon was the Unity. And I just Unity financials this week. There's a lot more going on, but the things I want to say is that Unity revenue fell by 25% in Q4, and it saw declines. Technically, saw declines in both of its Create Solutions and Grow Solutions, so engine and ads business. Create Solutions revenue decreased by 47% year on year to $152 million. Grow Solutions declined by 5%. But apparently, for all these shenanigans, it could have risen by 2%, but for some deals Iron Source once cut. And that is also not revenue that's actually the strategic portfolio, which it's going to change next quarter, but they shifted things from strategic to non-strategic in their reporting. So I think just stuff that they're actually focused on in the future. Apparently, revenue from the strategic portfolio for Create Solutions would have been up 4%. To me, it all didn't sound very good. They're working on a new tool, Vector, for UA to compete with AppLovin. It's kind of interesting. I feel like I hear this every quarter. We're ready now to compete with AppLovin. I heard this under the last CEO. It's like, well, I don't know, it's like a year later, I don't know, 9 months later, and it's still the same story. And last thing I want to say is I feel like Unity's just not getting it at the moment. Like, doesn't understand. I know it's a big public company, and it does have other customers that aren't games. But games is like its biggest business. And when it was talking about big new customers it's got, notably, it didn't mention games companies. Perhaps they don't have any big new games companies to brag about. But then they mentioned like Toyota and another company. It's like, I feel like the messaging should really be brought back to games, because those are the people that they've hurt the most. That is their core business, and without them, they won't have a business. So I'm sure it's great to be thinking of non-gaming stuff, but I really, personally, what do I know? But I would be like, scale that talk down. Maybe investors probably wouldn't like that. And also, to sum up how wrong I am about being like down about what they said, when I looked earlier, their share price was up by like 16%. So people are obviously very happy. And I'd note that losses were down quite considerably. But yeah, we'll see how they fare in future. I think, yeah, everyone wants Unity to be well and successful because it's so influential. Right. That's a good note to end on. Something positive.
Yeah.
So thanks very much, Aaron, for being on the show this week. Always great to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's been a packed one this week.
Packed one, but we tried to condense it.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone who's tuned in and listened. As Aaron said at the start, we're back for the second week running after my hiatus, and we'll be back again next week and hopefully many weeks and months to come. So yeah, all I can say is have a great weekend. Hope you tune in next week. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.